Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the No Laying Up Golf Podcast. My name is Randy. I'm joined by Cody McBride. This is a KPMG Women's PGA preview. Welcome into the show. And Cody, good morning. How are you doing?
Very good, Big. Do you know anything about Sammamish, Washington?
I do not. I'm hoping to learn something today, though. It's an
I'm pumped. I'm pumped for Pacific Northwest golf. We never get to see it. It feels like it's an awesome golf course. We're going to talk about something that is near and dear to your heart, and that's big trees, baby. I'm excited because this golf course, you want to talk about big trees, rough. If people haven't, have been missing that combination on a golf course for a bit after watching Pinehurst and everything else on the East Coast, boy, we're going to get it this week.
Can't wait. Yeah, majestic trees, lush green corridors. I can't wait. I think it's going to be awesome visuals on TV this week. Before we get into all that, though, let's thank our two go-to sponsors. Let's start with Yeti. What can we tell the folks about Yeti?
You know, Yeti, we love them. They're presenting sponsor of all of our LPGA content this year. Nobody does it better than Yeti whether we're talking about luggage, hard coolers, soft coolers, drinkware, you name it. Anything that I just said, they also have a cool custom tool that you can go in and customize any sort of, product that they have on their website. I do that for my little kids. We go through so many different water bottles. They're losing them all the time at school and camps. Big. Now I got custom Yeti bottles with their names on it and my phone number. So when people find it,
That's a
hopefully they're
great
nice
idea.
and return it back.
Yeah.
Yeti products perform when it matters most. Everybody, please head on over to yeti.com for their complete product line and more, including some very, very bright, majestic, I would say, summer colors that are just debuting. They're incredible there. But of course, thanks to Yeti, getting deeper and deeper into the golf game. And I think, they've been on with us for overall content for going on like 3 years now, and every single time I pinch myself. Thank you to them and to our great friends at Titleist and the number one golf ball on the LPGA tour. Big, I want to know one question for you.
Yeah.
What golf ball do you play and how do you mark that golf ball?
I play a Pro V1 X. So I was fit into the X. The X promotes more spin, which I need. So I've been very happy in the X. And you know the way I mark it, I've often thought, is it time to switch up how I mark the golf ball? But I put just a simple red line over the alignment on the side. So I just trace over that alignment line running on the side of the golf ball with a red line. I feel like that's kind of boring. I've been thinking, do I switch color? What else can I do?
Why
But
red?
I don't know. That's another thing. Why red? I don't know. I guess it's a little
And you
distinctive. I don't see many people marking their ball with red, so that helps, I
do you
guess.
use that alignment aid to help line up your putts or anything, or is it purely just a spot for you to put your red slash and muck up that golf ball?
Yeah, just a place where I can muck up that golf ball. No, I don't use the line for putts. I do sometimes use it on the tee box, but not like I'm weird. I kind of put the line perpendicular to like my target. It's probably the worst way to go about it, but
Where did you pick that up from?
I don't know. I this is where I'm getting in my own head. I don't know why I started doing this. I don't know why, I just need a consistent visual to look at on the tee. I think that's where it comes from. And so whatever I do, I just try to do it every time. But maybe it's not the best way to go about it.
Well, you're coming off of a big 100 hole hike, and I could not be any more proud of you for finishing the thing, raising a ton of money for a great charity. But do you happen to remember how many golf balls did you go through?
Yeah, I do, because I got out there and I was like, "Man, it'd be really cool to do all 100 holes with one golf ball." That did not happen. I was quickly disabused of that, and, in the worst way possible too. I think it was my 3rd hole of the day, and
Well,
I was I
okay.
was still by myself at this point, and I hit one up, like I said, the 3rd hole in the rough, and legitimately just could not find it in the rough. Like, it wasn't that.
Oh, no. So it's not water or
No.
anything. It's just,
No, I literally just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And then it's
Time's
like,
of the essence. You're
do
out
I
there. You
walk
don't want to
back
be
do I
looking.
walk back to the tee? Like, am I playing real golf? Am I and that's where it's like, man, you're at a crossroads at that point. And so sheepishly, I just dropped one and I continued on. The
Oh,
truly
wow.
completing the 100 holes was my sole focus. And then I did end up pumping a few more like over this fence at one point, and I feel like another time I lost one in the shit. So let's call it like 5 balls I went through on my 100
5
holes.
balls in 100 holes. That's pretty good,
Yeah,
though.
but you got to understand
Or
there wasn't much there wasn't much trouble out there at all. I mean, hitting it off property was a big miss for your boy, and I pumped 2 of them in a row over the boundary fence.
well, I didn't expect this ad read to also be the honesty box. We appreciate you telling the truth here and letting the people know that you're playing by select rules. But I will say the name of the game that day was just finishing 100 holes
Survival.
of golf.
That's right.
There's not about scores
No.
or anything else like that. But, I understand you play serious golf. You hit cups, and that means a lot for you to open up here.
Yeah, thank you. I know it does feel like a weight lifted off my chest. I'm not proud of
Now, I
I'm not proud of the golf I played that day, but I am proud of the walk and completing, if you will, 100 holes.
sounds like there's some pretty good durability in those Pro V1 X's, and that's why I play them too. I need the spin. I need that thing on my woods, my irons, and I like the feel of it around hitting those little short game shots, those little
Yeah,
feelers big.
yeah.
And I mark it. I usually I have this usually a black marker, but I'll take any marker. I put a dot on both sides of the Titleist script there, but also something new that the fine folks at Titleist sent me some new golf balls, some new logoed golf balls with the no laying up script,
I
which I
saw
absolutely
those.
love. And it's like the perfect size. The issue with it now is that I'm so scared about losing these balls anywhere because people are going to know exactly where they came from.
Yeah, that's true.
And when you're playing golf in the metroplex down here, there's only one person. It's not like Jack's Beach or anything. I'm sure you feel the same way with some of those wayward drive balls that they made for us a couple months ago. But I want everybody to head on over to Titleist.com. They can start the fitting process to find what golf ball is best for their game. They got all new sort of alignment stuff going on now, too, on the new balls. It's awesome. Thank you to Titleist. Thank you to Yeti. Big, let's set the stage here. Where are we at in LPGA world as we get ready for this major championship at Sahalee?
Yeah, I think we're in a I mean, Cody, we're in a fantastic spot, and I say that because our most recent winner last week, Lilia Vu, coming back after a 2-month absence. You might remember she had to withdraw from the Chevron back in April was the last time we saw her. It was a back injury, and it honestly it seemed not great because it caused her to miss the US Open, which is a big deal. And I was thinking,
And she had to pull out of Chevron as well.
right.
Or did she finish Chevron? No, she
No,
had to
she
withdraw
withdrew.
there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
she withdrew. So essentially taking herself out of 2 majors. And I was also just worried because there was just like a little bit of a lack of information around the injury. And as we're not seeing her at the US Open, it's coming on 2 months. It's like, oh geez, how serious is this back injury? But we were both very excited early in the week, last week it was announced she would make the start up in Michigan for the Meijer, and not only did she make the start, Cody, she went and won the damn thing, which I think is just one. It speaks to her ability and how great of a golfer she is. But then selfishly, as a golf fan, I mean, with the year Nelly Korda's been having, we've said all along, like the missing thing here is Lilia Vu being someone to like push Nelly and challenge Nelly. And so with Lilia winning last week up in Blythefield Country Club, rolling into the KPMG this week with she's got to have momentum and feeling good about her game. I just feel like that's such an awesome thing for the women's game. So I think that we start there. And I don't want to short shrift. I mean, the Meijer was an amazing event. It obviously overshadowed by the U.S. Open last week. So candidly, I really didn't watch much of it. I watched highlights and tried to catch myself up. But 3-way playoff, Grace Kim, Lexi Thompson finding form seemingly out of nowhere. And like I said, Lilia Vu all finished at 16 under, went into the playoff. Lilia prevails. Awesome week last week. Anything there that you'd like to drill down on or highlight further?
Well, I think, you never really understand where people are at with their injuries. This is a professional sport that is notorious for not there's no injury reports. There's no nothing like you don't know who's 100%, who's 90%, who's got lagging fingers, toes. It seems like everybody always has something going on and it's up to the player on what they want to divulge. And I think you hit the nail on the head with Lilia is that we saw this last year after she, won Chevron and she took a couple months before she popped back up in June again. And then, nobody was really expecting her. She didn't have the best form when she ended up winning the second major of the year at the AIG Women's Open. So we kind of was thinking, oh no, like, you know, there's no news really about the injury. There's no updates at all. We don't know when she's going to tee up next. We thought it was going to be for KPMG, and she even said like, "Hey," or excuse me, not KPMG, but for the U.S. Women's Open. She even said, "My goal was to be there for the U.S. Women's Open. I just was not ready." And I pulled some sound bites from her winners press conference, and I'm going to roll this into our winning advice brought to you by our friends at Mizuho and listen to her and figure out kind of what's been going on lately.
Yeah, I'm very satisfied with this week. My team, I have the best people around me. They've helped me get to this point. Obviously, I was really sad to not be able to defend my title at Chevron and also miss out at the U.S. Women's Open. But I feel like I needed those weeks off to kind of, let my body recover and stop just playing through the pain.
And how did you physically feel out there? Did you feel zero effect coming off all that, or did you feel 100% out there?
It's hard to feel 100%, but I think I've been 95%, and I think obviously I played more than 18 holes today, so kind of feeling a little tight, but it's all good. It's not the same as before. I think this is the most meaningful win because there was a time 2 months ago where I was just crying on the range, not being sure if I would ever play a tournament again without pain. And, like, to be here today is just incredible. Just the team I have around me, they've supported me through everything, and I just can't believe that we're in this position today. Definitely wasn't in the mindset of winning. I just happened to win, but I'm very grateful for everything. Yeah, I mean, the support I've gotten at home from all of my family and friends back at the clubs at home have been so great. It makes me so emotional. I know like some people get emotional even wishing me good luck at this event, and to know that people care, and I just try my best for the people around me, and I'm able to do this because I have them.
Now, there's a lot that we can unpack there,
Yeah.
Big, and I don't really know where you want to start at, but I think, at a time in professional golf when we talk about the difficulties of the grind, if you want to call it, the week to week. We talk a lot about the LPGA Tour schedule and how there's long breaks. And if you happen to miss out on, some of these weeks when there's back to back to back to back, events, when the schedule really starts going, how far behind the eight ball you are. And that's kind of how her season has played out so far. But, I think the biggest thing that stands out here is just her overall resiliency to get through this, to realize that, eventually there is going to be another side of this injury, but having her sit there and say, I was bawling on the range because I never thought I'd be able to swing the golf club again without pain.
I think that's the most interesting thing. Yeah, absolutely. Just her saying this win was the most significant is really quite something, given her struggles when she first turned professional. Going back onto the Epson tour, really not knowing if she was going to continue playing professional golf. Like, really thought about giving up the game at one point, but stuck with it, earned her tour card again, and then out last year, not only win for the first time on tour, but to win four times, excuse me, plus two majors, be the overwhelming player of the year. And for her to say last week's Meijer was like the most important win, meaningful. That I mean, that tells you the doubt and kind of the depth of the injury and really where she was the last couple months. So that's, I mean, wow, that is incredible to hear her say.
Yeah, it's also nuts to think about the fact that she is the reigning LPGA Tour Player of the Year, overall most dominant last year, completely, you know, I kind of in the shadows so far this year, not only because of the injury, but how Nelly's been playing so far. She's number 2 in the world. She never dropped below that number 2 spot as soon as Nelly passed her to get to number 1. Um, but seeing her back in this position on a course that she wasn't necessarily comfortable with, I mean, the scores out there were deep, and you had to, it was a birdie barrage.
Mhm.
And it's crazy because we had multiple reports of like from members out there of how they love this golf course. They can get it super firm, they can get the greens really, really fast. And then they do that because they hope that this event that they're so proud to host, puts up a firm but difficult test for the best women in the game of professional golf. And then the LPGA kind of gets in there and softens things up and slows things down a little bit, which kind of goes anti this. But overall finish, you get a three-way playoff here with Lilia, Lexi, and the young Aussie superstar searching for her second win in Grace Kim. A pretty good finish. But overall, I mean, Lilia, all credit to her, of course, but her mom travels week to week with her, an incredible support system that she has with her caddy. Obviously, a lot of emphasis put on Cole and what he means to her with through all those victories last year. But really, the rock to what she's been able to do has been her dad, and he's been her swing coach ever since she picked up a golf club. Their entire community that they live and he works at back in California. It's just kind of incredible to see her give not only praise to them, individual members of the team, but really calling out like the community on a whole. And I think that's exactly what, you know, she stands for and wants to represent as one of the greatest women in professional golf. But also, thanks to Mizuho and winning advice. And if anybody wants to get more information from them, you can visit them at MizuhoAmericas.com.
You're an expert at just weaving that in. That was good stuff there. Good stuff.
Well, yeah, it's hard. You're trying to make it fit.
Of course, of course. Other, I guess, just quickly notable things from last week's Meijer. I mentioned Lexi Thompson was in the playoff. I mean, I I just can't figure out her her game. If you look at her results, going back, so she was obviously tied for second last week. Her prior 4 starts before that were all missed cuts. And then the one before that was a tied for third out at the Ford Championship in late March. So it's very boom or bust for Lexi. I have no idea what to expect this week from her. You mentioned Grace Kim. Grace Kim is somebody that's put herself in some really good positions this year on the LPGA Tour and has just come up short. But young Australian, I think her, speaking of press, I thought she had a really powerful press conference after that final round, just talking about like, hey, listen, I'm in this spot. I'm up against like 2 titans of the women's game in Lexi and Lilia. Like, I must be doing something right. So it was fun to kind of see her take some real positives from what could be a crushing week going into the final round with a 5-shot lead and coming up short. And then the only other one, Cody, I thought we should note, especially ahead of the major, is Allison Corpuz had a really good week, and I think is somebody that if she is on form and she seems to be finding form for sure. I feel like Sahalee, we'll get into the course and what type of player it favors, but we saw Allison really, really play well at a tough Pebble Beach setup last year for the U.S. Women's Open, and it's fun to see her kind of really find some form and hopefully bring her A game up to the KPMG this week.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, she's I honestly thought the U.S. Women's Open last year was going to be her like, okay, we figured out how to do this on the professional level, and we're just going to start kind of picking everything off. But it's clearly just winning is so hard, and I don't know like what other evidence we need to prove it besides like watching golf every single week, and you just realize like, man, you know, even when you put yourself in the perfect position, like just getting over that hump is so freaking difficult, man.
Yeah. Which somebody that had made winning seem downright easy was, of course, Nelly Korda. And I think I said one other interesting thing, but I lied. I think we need to talk about, Nelly missing the cut last week. And after the missed cut at the U.S. Open at Lancaster, to miss the cut up in Michigan, that's 2 straight missed cuts. I don't think there's any cause for concern, Cody, but let me ask you, are we worried, or is this just kind of like, hey, she's going to miss some cuts eventually? Her unbelievable hot streak was never going to just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I mean, she's human, right? And I understand that on paper it says 2 cuts in a row, but I'd even say like, Nelly she played one hole wrong at Lancaster, and that's what resulted in it. And she played 71 other holes, or excuse me, I'd say 35 other holes, the way that she should have. And outside of that one hole, and that's golf, right? So,
Yeah.
either way, it's going to be a cut. Now, I was completely shocked. I did not see her opening up with a 76. Of course, she backed that up with a 67. I don't see anything really too wrong here. Even the 76, she started her day out with a double at the very first hole. She went double, bogey, bogey, finally settled out, par, par, birdie, birdie, par to shoot 39 on her front side in round one. And she's got so much going on. I think this is okay. It sucks for the people at Meyer who want to see her play on the weekend. And I guess we could probably have that conversation later on and see if what is happening in the men's game would also benefit on the women's side. But at the end of the day, that's not really how I want to see my golf. She didn't play well. She didn't make enough to make the cut, and she went home. Now, I don't think that that's like ruining her entire season.
No,
And I
no.
would say like knowing Nelly and the thoughts that she puts into it, she got 2 extra days to rest, recover, and prepare for a major championship that she is thinking about.
Yeah.
That truly does matter. So we'll see, of course. We picked up the win. I think that truly the win that mattered at Chevron. Extremely disappointed at the second major championship of the year, the US Women's Open. This is a big week for Nelly Korda and the year that she wants it to shape up to be, potentially one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we'll really know where we're at with her game.
I think that's extremely well said. We do have some audio clips. I don't know if you have her discussing going back to the U.S. Open and making that 10. And I thought this was a very interesting audio clip from Nelly.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I was happy with the way I played. I was happy with the way I fought. I fought really, really hard to make the cut, and I think that was probably the proudest I was of myself actually throughout all of the events that I've played this year, is how hard I fought after making that, that 10 on that par 3.
So it reminds me a little bit of what we just heard from Lilia. Hearing Nelly talk about what you said, a great season, a historic season already. And for her to single out like how she fought mentally, how she stayed in it after making that 10 on her third hole of the US Open, being like the most proud she's been of herself this year. I think that's really cool to hear. And I think that speaks to just the maturity and her ability to kind of get past what was like it wrecked her whole week. Like I can't imagine how deflating that is, coming in as she did on the run that she had been on with the expectations not only that she has for herself but from the outside. And it's the preeminent week on the LPGA tour year in and year out, and to just have it go completely sideways early could just be the most deflating thing. But awesome to hear that she stayed in it, she fought to make the cut, she ultimately came up just short. But kudos to her. I love hearing her say that, Cody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you go back and like, if you want to dig into her KPMG performance insights, just based off of these two events that we're highlighting here, obviously we know that that horrible number that she made on her third hole of that opening round. But it's funny. So we only have data from the 2 rounds that she played there. She gave up 6.3 strokes tee to green. And obviously a lot of that you could focus in on that single par 3, but really just driving the rest of it. She was off of her game. And then you compound that with giving up a little bit over 4 strokes gained around the green. Lost around the green compared to the field. It is just wasn't good. And then you flip over to Meijer this week and kind of how her game is trying to steady itself out. She's back to gaining, almost 2.25 strokes tee to green, back positive strokes gained around the green. She's positive, of course, in driving. And then there we have it. Just what her bugaboo was at Meijer was putting. And I hate to say that, but she gave up 3.5 strokes to the field putting. And that's just not going to help, when we start talking about Sahalee, what these big greens that they do have, but they're slick and they got a lot of movement in it. And I'm not talking about like little short breaks here, real long, slopey breaking putts that she's going to have. So it's going to definitely test her leg putting, but really those shorties that we know from time to time pop up and she struggles with.
So lest we think that Nelly's game is out of sorts, or we're worried, 2 straight missed cuts. What's this going to do? She had another wonderful clip about, going through this little bit of rough patch in her game.
I love when golf humbles me. Not to that extent, but I do love when golf humbles me because, sometimes you ride the highs, but it's always in a sense nice to know where you can improve too.
I love it. God, I just feel like everybody else should be really, really worried when Nelly starts talking like this, because to your exact point, she would have left Michigan knowing exactly what she needs to work on. In some of her other press conferences, she talked about, feeling good with her irons. I think she felt good about how she was hitting the ball. She talked about just flying it over the flag and not quite having those distances exactly dialed in. But the putting was the glaring weakness, and now she knows that's exactly what she needs to work on. Like you said, a couple extra days to prepare. I just feel like, weirdly, I love where Nelly is coming into this week, and a lot of that is because of, what she's telling us in these press conferences.
Yep, I completely agree with you, Big. I'm not concerned. The year of Nelly's rolling on. This is going to be a big week for that. But every time she tees it up, we say that it's a big week. And it's just one of those things where, yes, golf can be a very, very humbling game, but also she's human. And, as much as everybody's out there searching for perfection, she's the first person to say that that's just not obtainable at all. So I'm going to be comfortable with the results. You can't win them all, but she's going to give everything that she possibly can.
Well, 2 more things we can quickly touch on that have happened since the U.S. Open a few weeks back. A couple weeks ago at the ShopRite in New Jersey, LPGA history was made. Linnea Strom from Sweden, she became, Cody, the first person in LPGA history to shoot a Sunday 60. She started her round T52 and ended up winning. I mean, it's the largest comeback. So a few more just quick stats. It's the biggest comeback by position, that T52 to winning in LPGA history, and she becomes the 7th woman overall to shoot a 60 on the LPGA tour. Just an unbelievable day from Linnea Strom. A cool little, damn, didn't see that coming anywhere, but when she goes out and fires a Sunday 60, you got to tip your hat. That's pretty amazing.
It's truly amazing. And she wasn't, a proud alum from the Arizona State University, not the only Sun Devil to win that weekend as well. But if you want to take a look at it and be like, wait a second, who's Linnea Strom? Where did she kind of come from? not having the season that she planned so far. I mean, she has 8 missed cuts on the year. Outside of that, her best finish so far has been a T18 out at LA in the Fur Hills Savory Park Championship. Just one of those things where, you get a good feeling, you kind of find little lightning and you go out and do it because it's hard to say, even her first round, she shot 69-70 and then backed that up with that final round 60. She teed off. I mean, she was in the last group or second to last group or something like that. She was done hours and hours before anyone
Yeah.
else. Truly unbelievable stuff.
I know. I think she had like a 4-hour wait. And it just goes back to your point. Like winning is unbelievably difficult. Here you are, Ayaka Foodaway, Megan Kang. They were runners up, but certainly they weren't expecting somebody that didn't have a top 10 on the LPGA all year to come out and shoot a 60 and clip them. You just never know where those threats are going to come from. So that was really
Not
cool.
only that, it's not like they played bad in the final round
No,
either. I
no,
mean, Ayaka shot
exactly.
65, Megan shot 66. Like Ataya shot a final round 65 to end up losing by 2. Like it's just truly like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, not the only Swede to pick up a really cool victory. We'd be remiss not to shout out Lynn Grant, her teammate at Arizona State, her fellow Swede. She went over and won the Scandinavian mixed event on the DP World Tour, making history there, becoming she was the first woman to win on the DP World Tour a couple years ago when she won the event, and now becomes the first woman to win twice on the DP World Tour. And she started her round just like Linnea. She started her round, I think, 11 shots back of Sebastian Soderberg. He had it's tough. He had a little bit of a collapse, but Lynn was right there. She played a flawless final round and put herself in position to win that title, which is again, I think it's wonderful. That's her last start. She'll be over here at the KPMG and is somebody that, God, I hope she brings her A game because she is certainly capable of winning this major and many more majors to come.
Yep. No, I agree. And it's for her to win that event twice, to have the final round that she had, a devastating finish. We obviously like I cannot believe that I saw that kind of I don't want to call it a collapse, but it was really a collapse on 18 and Lynn end up, coming out with that dub. But it's great to see. And understand a couple weeks ago, and even when we had Maya on, we were talking about like, wait a second, what's going on with Lynn and Maya this year? Like, not the season that we thought. We thought they're going to come out and play like gangbusters. And now, Lynn got that dub, and Maya's still searching for it, but putting herself in great positions each time. It'll be very, very interesting to see all of that. Why does that matter? Solheim Cup year, Olympic year, all that stuff, deadlines coming through soon. It's truly very fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Olympics. The Olympic standings for the women will be set at the conclusion of the KPMG. So as of Sunday night, or I guess Monday morning, June 24th, we'll get the final rosters for those Olympic teams. Some real competition with the last spot for Team USA. I believe Megan Kang and Allison Lee both are jockeying for that position. You mentioned Lynn and Maya and Team Sweden. I believe both of them are set to be on the team, barring an Anna Nordquist or something happening this week. And certainly, Japan, South Korea, it's crazy competitive. So we'll see how that ends. Cody, I think this is a good segue into the KPMG. I think, given what we've talked about with Nelly, with Lilia, with Lynn Grant, we saw Yuka Sasso put on a dominant performance the last time we saw her at Lancaster in the U.S. Open. Let's talk about some of the storylines we're most excited for this week. And I think we can then get into the course and we'll make some picks and predictions. But let's fire it up. I'll start. I mean, not going out on a limb here. Going back to Lilia Vu, having her healthy and coming in off of a victory, I just don't think it can be said enough that, last year she was the player and she asserted herself as the best player in the world, really the best American female playing golf. won 2 majors, was the LPGA Player of the Year. I mean, just every accolade, well deserved. And then you flip to 2024, and we see Nelly go on this crazy historic run. She's won 6 times. She won the first major of the year, but we haven't seen them head to head really. You know, Lilia had to withdraw from Chevron. She didn't play at the US Open. This is going to be the first major since like all of this going on where these two women are going to be competing, you know, hopefully head to head. God, it'd be awesome if it came down the stretch Sunday and they were both in it. But I think just having Lilia healthy and you know, having the top 2 players in the world, it's cool that, you know, we're American. It's cool that they're American. I just think I want to start there. Like, I can't wait for this week, and I hope both ladies play just really good golf, and we can kind of get to see like, hey, if they're both playing their best, whose best is better.
Yeah, I think there's a couple others that would like a word and be included in that conversation as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't start with Yuka Sasso. I mean, complete dominant performance that she put on at the U.S. Women's Open, clearly in fine form. Somebody who might, hasn't really gone out and like got a ton of dubs so far, but Ataya is playing so good. I think this golf course sets up perfect for the way that Ataya plays golf.
Totally agree.
Again, you might as well put everything in the Pacific Northwest and kind of shift it to what that area means, not only for Brooke, but for Canadian golf as a whole. I mean, she's what I would say was like the last defending champion, kind of in sorts. Obviously, I'm not taking anything away from Ronnie Yin, who truly is the KPMG PGA, women's PGA defending champion this week, who also is finding really good form. But the last time this championship was at Sahalee, it was all about Brooke and it was all about Lilia. And if I was going to pick 2, I'm going to go or pick one. I'm going to go with Brooke here because she talked about it last time. One of the things that she credited to her success there is just how much at home she felt, that it truly reminded her of the majority of golf courses that she grew up playing at home in Canada. And this is a pretty big ballpark. They're not going to stretch it out quite as far as it was at the U.S. Women's Open, but we got very narrow fairways. We have thick rough, and it's truly one of the most claustrophobic golf courses that we're going to see on the men's or women's side all year long. I mean, there's just these massive, massive pine trees and everything else that you can think of that just kind of suffocate you from every tee box. And, you have big putting surfaces that are pinched majority from back to front with big, long slopes. They're going to be quick. And in doing some research for this, I went back and watched, and I'll start here, Big. What was the first memory that you have of Sahalee?
Oh gosh. Like, truth be told, it's honestly like highlights of Davis Love up there. And I say highlights because I don't know where I was in my life. I don't know what I was doing that specific week, but I don't think I really watched the event. So this is a bit of a blind spot as a course for me because I didn't the 2016 women's KPMG, I didn't see that one either. So Holly's weird. It's like I'll see pictures of it, and it's so striking. The tall, fir trees and pines and evergreens out there. It's really a visual of a course that we just don't see a lot of. Certainly for major championships. But I don't have a deep reservoir of memories, Cody. I'm kind of coming in a little bit fresh this year, I feel like.
Let me ask you here before we have to go back and edit this whole thing.
Did
But
Davis not
what
win?
event? What event do you think Davis Love
Well,
won
I
at
don't know. That's
Sahalee?
I guess that plays into my point. I feel like we need to keep this. Who won up
It
there?
does. It does feel like it would be a Davis Love
Yeah.
course, but I'll go back and say the first big event that Sahalee Country Club hosted, of course, was the 1998 PGA
Okay, so
Championship.
that's the one
Who won the 1998
that's
PGA
that's the one
Championship?
I'm thinking of. Was it VJ? I want to say either
It
VJ or
was.
okay. All right.
So VJ ended up winning there, played a pretty good final round. And I went back, and again, you can watch all this stuff on YouTube, but like watching the highlights from VJ's final round there, um, the person who ended up taking second to him, he was in the final group with him, which is, a great short game master from Wisconsin.
Oh,
And I'll say that his highest finish that he ever had in a major. But watching the greens and watching how VJ putted them, and then going back to 2016, the last time they the first time they hosted the KPMG Women's PGA Championship there, that Brooke won, beat Lydia in a playoff. Man, they turned the greens up, and it was like kind of scraggly and some bare spots, and mowing lines that weren't quite the same. They didn't match up all over the place in 1998. Well, all of that was fixed by 2016. And oh my goodness. And then, being on YouTube and everything else. So one of the, he's not in good anymore, but Luke Kwan went and did a video last fall, I think. And I watched his round around Sahalee, and I was like, oh my goodness. It was, even he said, it was like, it's the most claustrophobic I've ever felt on a golf course. You have to be able to work the golf. If you plan on hit driver, which is why Brooke was so successful there, is that she hit her, at the time, 48-inch driver, 19-year-old Brooke Henderson, both ways. She could work it right to left and left to right. And she birdied almost every par 5 and par 3s and picked up a couple strokes on par 4s, but truly put on a driving display. Like, she was able to move her driver everywhere. And I don't think that there's a lot of people currently in the modern game that that can move their driver both ways quite like Brooke was able to, because I don't even know if Brooke can still do that. Um, Now you can play, if you're gonna stick to one predominantly golf shot, you're just not gonna be able to get the ball around some of these big dog legs because the trees are so freaking massive, man. Like, it's like you are lining every single one of these fairways. It blew my mind. It's just crazy to look at. But they're, fairways, a mixture of rye and Poana out there, and then they have Poana putting surfaces that look so slick. And like I said, not crazy, like sharp breaking putts that that we saw last week at Pinehurst. How there's all these like little tiny movements all over the different plateaus and sections of each green. They're all long, drawn out slopes. And that's kind of the golf that I grew up playing. And that's what I love watching people putt on. But man, there's such a big difference from watching that tape from 1998 to 2016 to last year. And I'm like, holy cow, Sahalee grew up. And they've made some, course improvements over time. They redid all of their bunkers, not only like resanding, putting new bottoms in them to improve drainage and everything else, but they moved bunkers around specifically to match the women's game. And they took everything and plotter maps from the 2016 championship and were like, oh, okay, well, most golf courses are built with the men's game in mind. Well, we want this to be stand up and be the predominant women's championship course. So we're going to put them where we think that it would be, hazards need to be put. And I think that's like the coolest thing, because I can't remember any other big club ever doing that, specifically focused on the women's game.
that's really cool. And just hearing you describe the type of course and the type of play that will be tested this week, it really fits in well, I think, with what we've seen recently at the KPMG with, last year, we were at Baltusrol, which is, kind of big, sprawling. Certainly, talking about the putting, I felt like we saw a lot of just like broad slopes. You have these big greens, and you're trying to navigate both the speed and kind of the big broad slopes of them. And then the year before, when they were at Congressional, another just kind of big ballpark again with those big sloping greens. I think, as you said, the cool thing this year is it seems like we're going to have that type of putting challenge with like a totally different look off the tee. And so as I look at
Yep.
the KPMG Performance Insights, who's the best on the LPGA Tour this year, shots gained off the tee. There's a surprising woman first, which would be Alexa Pano. I never would have guessed that. but right behind,
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh man. Listen, if people ever doubt how Alexa Pano is so good and like where she truly makes everything up on the golf course, Titleist does an awesome job of how they do their not just social media, but some of the YouTube stuff that they do. They have a couple driver specific videos with Alexa, and they have a couple practice round videos. I encourage everyone to go watch those because not only you're going to understand who she is a little bit better, but you're going to understand how she thinks around getting off the tee because it's crazy to see. And for her to be number one, not surprised who's in number two outside of the fact that she's not number one in Nelly Korda makes a lot of sense.
yeah. If like getting off the tee is at a premium, it's cool. You know, right there in third place this season is Charlie Hall. You have Lynn Grant in fifth. You know, Yuka Sasso in eighth on the season, strokes gained off the tee, and then Brooke Henderson, I believe, what is she, 10th? So it's like some of these names that we would talk about anyways. It's man, if that's really where kind of the competition's going to be fought and ultimately decided, God, sign me up. You know, if Brooke and Yuka and Lynn and Charlie and Nelly, like that's awesome. And then, you know, obviously
Well,
you're gonna have to
I
layer
do have
on,
something to report.
yeah.
We we might have some issues here, and I don't want to go completely into Trop Trial land, but British Airways lost Charlie's bag, so
That's right.
she doesn't have her golf clubs right now. And
God, that's
I
gotta
don't
be a
know if
stressful feeling.
I don't know if the TaylorMade truck's there. I'm sure she could find some, I'm sure they'll get her clubs somehow. But honestly, for somebody, the last time that Charlie teed it up was at the US Women's Open. She's notorious for being a homebody. All she wants to do is be at home. If she outside of like the a couple of LET events that she picks up, she's not going to be on the road for 3 weeks at a time. She plays two tournaments in a row and then comes home, but she's been home for a long time and has been putting in a ton of work. Of course, not just fitness wise, big. I see what you've been watching, but also on her golf game. All right. And I had such high hopes for Charlie. I'm begging, please, British Airways. If there's anybody out there that listens to British Airways,
Please.
Charlie, why are you flying British Airways? Okay. I don't even know. Can BA get her all the way to Seattle?
Ooh,
Is
that's a
in
good
there?
question.
Can we get her a Delta or United? It seems like on the LPGA tour they're throwing these Delta sponsorships around.
I know.
Come on,
I know.
help a girl out.
I know.
What's going on here?
I know. That's a great point. We'll have to keep tabs on the status of Charlie's bag.
I do. We talked about venues, past venues. I will say, obviously, this year we're at this awesome golf course, Sahalee Country Club. Talked about how great of it is, not only for a club, but KPMG and the PGA of America's investment and everything to make this fit specifically for the women's professional game. Next year, we got to figure out something on this calendar because next year is going to be the first time that the women get a look at the East Course at Fields Ranch, just a couple miles north of me, big fella.
Yeah.
And if we're planning on playing this, women's PGA championship in the middle of June where it's at now, oh my goodness, we cannot do this. So I hope they move this. This got to go somewhere in early May.
Yeah.
Please, it's got to be in early May or late in the fall, which I don't know what's going to go on there, but it'll be very, very interesting. And I'm sure they have the dates. Being how big the hotel and everything, I'm sure they're zoned out somewhere. I just didn't look for it. After that, 2026, we're going to go to Hazeltine. 2027, we're back at Congressional. And then they don't have anything else posted yet on venues except for 2031. They're back, of course, home of the PGA of America, Fields Ranch, the East Course there. So it'll be very, very interesting to see. Is Baltusrol going to get another look? Because we know the relationship with the PGA of America. They really like Baltusrol.
Hmm.
Is Sahalee going to get another look? Like, I think there's a lot of other courses. The biggest thing that we got to figure out here, again, on the LPGA side and the overall scheduling of things is we got to figure out how this is going to work. Like, I feel like the KPMG Women's PGA, the US Women's Open, and the AIG Women's Open, they're all just bouncing around. And it's like we're giving extreme preference to the Olympics. And I understand that they're setting, Olympic schedules are out 10, 12 years in advance. How come we can't figure out the year-to-year calendar, guys.
I know.
What's going on?
I know, because last year, you'll remember, it was back-to-back, the KPMG and the US Women's Open. Yeah, I'd like to see him get some more stability and kinda carve out spots on the calendar for these bigger events. Cody, you know something, as you were talking about Brooke and what she did here in 2016, this kinda dovetails into something I find interesting. We have a lot of the preeminent golfers right now on the LPGA tour have 2 major victories. And so if you go back to 2016, these are the women that currently are sitting on 2 major championships. You have Nelly Korda, she just got there earlier this year. You have Lilia Vu, she won her 2 last year. You have Brooke Henderson, she's got 2 total. You got Minjee Lee, she's got 2 total. Yuka Sasso just won her second. Jin Young Ko has 2 total. Lydia Ko has 2 total. It's just an incredible kind of bunch up that we have now with these women sitting on 2 majors, and I think that's something fascinating. If out of that cohort, will we see one of those women, kind of break free and win that 3rd major this week? I just thought it was interesting, all these young names, and I mean, even like Brooke and Lydia, who've been around forever, they're still quite young. Just find it interesting, when you look at the whole, nobody's really, honestly, since like MB Park. MB Park won, what she won, 6 majors. But in that
Yep.
void, since she's kind of taken a step back and is now out of the game and starting a family, we have a lot of women jockeying for position here, and so I think it is really cool. If Yuka were to win a 3rd, or Minjee Lee, it's like there is some standing that I think you and I care about, and it's kind of fun to talk about the women's game in these terms. So I just found it interesting. We kind of have a big 2 major club, and maybe somebody joins that 2 major club. You talked about Ronning Yin, she certainly could. Allison Corpuz certainly could. Maybe a Taya Titticum wins 2 before any of these other win 3. I just think there's a lot of directions we could go right now in the women's game.
Yeah, it's truly who could say, but again, I just go back to like, man, how lucky we are to talk about like so many really good players finding awesome form at the right time of year right now, and with Nelly clearly on top, Lilia back. I mean, it's so much. We haven't even talked about Lydia, still 1 point away.
Yeah.
I think I got to go back and check here, but I'm pretty sure the last time this event was played here, somebody else needed to clinch a Hall of Fame point too, and I don't know if they quite got it done, but just craziness altogether. Big 156 players in this field, big tournament, lots of tee times. Of course, we got 8 players that have qualified, true professionals out there, LPGA professional staff, through the Core Bridge Financial. They're throwing their money out there still. So we'll see how those 8 professionals stack up against the best players in the women's game. But I'm excited. You got some what are we doing television wise?
Yeah. So broadcast schedule, anybody that hasn't seen that yet, Thursday and Friday, these are all Eastern United States times. Thursday and Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Peacock is going to be the place to watch. And then from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Golf Channel. Again, that's Thursday and Friday. And then on Saturday, it's going to be really 1 to 8 p.m. on Peacock with a 3 to 6 p.m. window on NBC. And then Sunday, 12 to 7 p.m. on Peacock with a 3 to 7 p.m. window on NBC. So, Cody, this is something I want to talk about. We don't.
Let's go. What is up with this TV schedule?
Well, we don't have to belabor the point, but I really do think, you compare the TV schedule for the women's PGA, compared to what we had for the men's PGA, where it was truly wall to wall. And I get that, the men's PGA, CBS and ESPN had the rights. For the women's PGA, it's NBC with Golf Channel. But I just feel like there should be a bit more of a burden or an initiative on the part of the PGA of America as a national organization for both female and male professionals, for them to put on their championship and to have really quite a disparity in the broadcasting of those two championships, I just feel like it's a little off. And I wish we could see more of an effort to at least get to where the men's PGA championship has been, which is, again, there were over 250 hours of coverage. You had dedicated, featured holes, featured groups. Shit, we're on an alt cast on ESPN. There just is so many more ways to engage with the men's PGA championship, and I just think it's not great that the women's PGA championship is not being pushed to at least be on the same type of broadcast platform as the men's. Again, because it's a national organization. I would say the same thing about the USGA. And to their credit, I feel like they're making the men's championship and the women's championship much more commensurate in how they're broadcast and presented. And I just don't quite see that yet with the PGA.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Big. The one thing that I would say, let's see, Saturday. So I was shocked when you said Saturday is 1 to 8 Eastern, Peacock 3 to 6 NBC. There is on Saturday that 6 to 8 p.m. There's a Golf Channel slot
Okay.
that we
I missed that.
didn't get in the notes. But why aren't we taking advantage of West Coast, some primetime options here? Why are we constantly like, what's the point of putting it on NBC for the 3 hours and then we're sliding it over to the Golf Channel?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask
Excuse
you.
me, the channel.
So they're not finishing in prime time on
No.
Sunday. And I guess my question to you would, I feel like they should, is they must feel like they can get better ratings maybe if they go in that traditional like 3 to 7 window. It's kind of more of an East Coast finishing time. I was curious your thoughts on that and whether that's a mistake.
Well, of course it's a mistake, but I'm sure there's Olympics or something else going on that I'm trying to pull up right now on my old TV guide here to figure out, give somebody the benefit of the doubt here at least, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, Biggie. But I don't know. Again, this is kind of case in point of somebody who has all the rights for everything, but like, what's the point of holding all those rights if you're just going to do stuff half-assed?
Right.
I'm not saying this is 100% on NBC. I still think a lot of the buck this needs to go to the PGA of America. And I harp on this every year, and I understand we're only 10 years into the PGA of America investment into this event. And it's come a long way. We talked about the 2016 playing of this championship the last time it was at Sahalee, and the purse there, the total prize fund in 2016 was $3.5 million. They haven't announced officially what the prize fund is going to be this year, but last year is 10 million bucks. So I assume it's going to be at least that or a little bit more. We'll see where it goes there. But winner's share for Brooke when she won $525,000 last year. Of course, Ronnie taking, I think, a million plus home.
Just good. She had to
It's
pay the landlord. That's good.
She did. She did. Great to see. But, with growth in prize funds, there's also an extreme, if companies that are putting that type of money out, there also needs to be a change in the media rights, because I guarantee you at some point in time, all this money via investment in purses is going to catch up with the LPGA tour, and it's going to put Molly in a very difficult position to finally have to make those hard decisions, because the way they're currently going about overall brand exposure is not equal at all to the amount of financial investment that these companies, and thank God these companies are putting the money up there, but it has to find a balance sometime.
And from the fans' perspective, right? It's listen, the purse is becoming again more commensurate between male and female in something like the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open, where it's these national bodies that serve both men and women. I absolutely love that, and I think it's crucial. But eventually, you're exactly right. Where this purse increase, from a fan's perspective, it's like that's wonderful, but like, where's the increase broadcast option, or where can we get better access to watch these events? At a certain point, they're really going to have to start focusing on the viewer and the fan, and
Yeah.
building it that way as well. I think that's really well said about, like, those things should go hand in hand. And I think right now we're seeing, far heavier emphasis put on the purses, which again is great for the competitors. It's wonderful for a lot of reasons, but at some point we got to talk about the broadcasts, and how these events, not only the majors, but certainly week to week, are presented.
Just to close out a couple of these notes here, I
Yeah.
went up and I pulled the old TV guide up, and I was right. So the U.S. Summer Olympic time trials start immediately after NBC's coverage on Sunday. That's why they're getting bumped over to the channel, or excuse me, they're not even getting bumped over. This is going to be very interesting, because if they do not, say something happens and they do not finish play by 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC, what's NBC going to do? Because we know, I mean, the Olympics is it for them.
Yeah.
And are they going to ride and finish this tournament out? Or are they going to, something else happens? And I know this year we got in a big fuss Twitter complaint last year because we were promised these commercial free hours paid by Callaway or something like that. And that actually didn't even come to fruition. We got commercial free, like 37 minutes or some crap like that. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm just prepared to be pelted by commercials. I understand people got bills to pay and everything else like that, but I don't know where are streaming options? Where are, just put it on the website somewhere. Why can't I watch this thing on KPMG Women's PGA Championship.com? We're constantly jumping through hoops for a partner that seems, we obviously know they care a lot about the women's game. But trying to figure out how the financials of it make sense for them seems to be like priority number one.
Yeah. And again, just to put a fine point on it, back last month at Valhalla, you could watch, granted, this was streaming plus, regular cable television, but Thursday and Friday, it went from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So it's blanket coverage of the entire day that you can watch of this major championship. And we get
With
less,
betting shows, with our
yeah, and
shows, with you
we're
name
getting
it.
less than half of that on the women's side. And I think that's kind of what we need to start. There needs to be more. So
I had hope. Obviously, well, we didn't really sign a deal, to be completely honest. We basically volunteered to do the LPGA streaming option on ESPN Plus on select tournaments.
mhm,
And the fact that this wasn't on the schedule that they sent over to us, it kind of gave me hope. I was like, oh, wait a second. They must have figured some other streaming option out or whether that's Golf Channel or USA or whatever, NBC, one of NBC's channels is going to carry a lot more of this golf tournament because we're not going to have an ESPN Plus option.
yeah.
Well, that doesn't look like the case from the schedule that you laid out.
No, no. Just to finish up on the schedule, we will have a happy hour NLU live show tomorrow afternoon. That's kind of going to be a split between KPMG and the Travelers Championship over on the PGA Tour. But then Friday night, you and I believe Sahalee, we were, not to air her out, we were really hoping Jane Park, and she was trying to work on a friend to join her Friday night. That is not going to be the case anymore. So I apologize in advance. It's going to be me and you, Cody. I think Solly's going to join us. We're going to work on some guests to lighten the mood around there. But folks can check us out at the end of coverage, 10 p.m. Eastern Friday night. And then also Sunday at the conclusion of play, we're going to go live, reacting, of course, to the KPMG, the Travelers, and everything going on in the world of golf. So that's the broadcast schedule. I say we end this with some official picks. What do you say?
I love it, buddy.
All right, give me.
Can I put a caveat in here
Yes,
real
please.
quick? I want an asterisk, just like a Gooch asterisk that we put into men's majors. I want an asterisk put in here that says strictly for in the fine print, this is all subject to when Charlie Hall gets her golf bag.
I think that's well said.
Thank you.
All right, let's start here. Let's go. Do you have a surprise miscut? I will lead us off. I'll give you a second to think about it. I'm going to take Jin Young Ko as a surprise miscut. And I say that because if I look at her driving performance this year. She's losing half a shot per round off the tee. And I just feel like, man, if you're a little bit wild, if you're spraying the ball, it's not a good recipe around Sahalee. So I'm going to take Jin Young Ko as my surprise miscut this week, Cody.
I actually agree with that, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I think there's such a premium around here for driving accuracy, and I'm going to go somebody who I know TC had very very high hopes, and she's playing really really good. Almost got a dub couple weeks ago. My surprise miscut's going to come from, I hate to say it, the 16th ranked player in the world, somebody who needs to get in that top 15 by the end of this week. That's Megan Kang.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
major Olympic implications here. She needs to get in the top 15 in order to get that last spot for Team USA. There's a lot riding on it. I just don't think really course match here, which is, I don't know. Now I'm trying to talk myself out of it because of, she played so good in Canada and in Portland last year. And those are there's a lot more breathing room there, but kind of the same versions of this golf course. Now I'm going to stick with it. Megan Kang. I'm sorry.
Love you working that out in real time. All right, how about a surprise? We'll call it a surprise top 10. And, your definition of surprise might vary. But again, looking at the stats, somebody that I think profiles really well, and it's not just my heart speaking, Cody, but if you look at what Madeline Sagstrom does really well, it's hit the ball off the tee and putt. And if she can, the big thing with Madeline, and Lord knows I've watched so much of her golf in person, trying to follow on the broadcast, even just like dissecting her scorecards. She has a real problem avoiding the doubles and triples and in the blow up holes. And so I really do worry about that at Sahalee, right? She could drive the ball flawlessly for, minus the par threes, let's call it 13 holes, right? But she could hit a squirrely one out of nowhere. I say all that though, she's I haven't crunched all the numbers, but just a cursory glance through the KPMG Performance website's page, she's among the top rated if you combine strokes gained off the tee with strokes gained putting. She's gaining nearly a stroke per round on the greens, and so I just think that combination could be a beautiful match for the venue this week. Of course, I'm always rooting for Madeline. She holds a spot near and dear to our heart at NLU. She's somebody that we support. So I hope this is a great week for her, and I think she qualifies as what would be a surprise top 10.
I mean, 38th in the world. I don't know if we would
I
go
mean, thanks for
crazy
just shitting
surprise,
on
but
me. Yeah, thanks.
But no, I agree with you. I mean, course match wise, it truly makes sense. I'm gonna go. There's no data that's telling me that this is a smart thing. This is truly an eye test thing. All
Okay,
right.
all right.
Now, this player has won. If I told you that this player won an event this year,
Okay.
has played in 8 other events, and either has missed the cut or withdrew in 6 of those 8 events,
My-
you would not say that there is any form or anything coming in here. And I'm talking about the lovely Bailey Tardy.
yes.
All right. Since her win at the Blue Bay LPGA, she has a lot. She has 5 missed cuts, actually 6 missed cuts, and 1 withdrawal. She pulled out of the JM Eagle LA Championship. Her only finish that she had is a tie for 34th at the Mizuho Americas Open. But what I like, and if we're really talking about like driving here, she is really good off the tee. She's 21st, according to KPMG Performance Insights, 21st for strokes gained off the tee. It kind of matches up. She's, in the top 50 for total strokes gained tee to green. Her total strokes gained are not good. She's in 91st, but really what her true bugaboo is around the green and putting. But I think this is one of those courses, just like we saw, not so much at Lancaster, but kind of like Valhalla, where because there's so much thick rough around these greens, you're really just chopping it out, and like every shot is kind of the same. There's not a lot of tightly mown areas or anything else like that, which I think aids somebody like her. And as long as, these are big greens, get them on the green, she can putt, she just got to get hot. And when she gets hot, there's truly nothing that's going to stop her. And like, that's kind of how she played last year at the US Women's Open when she had that major glow up through 3 rounds and then life kind of came crashing down. But I wanted to get really, really far out there and make some, make a
Stick
pick
your
that's
neck out.
truly,
Yeah.
hey, shock the world here.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm riding with. So come on, Bailey.
I love it. I mean, that's way more of a gutsier pick than I gave you. Well, then let's get to our winner pick. This is honestly, for the first time, it's not just an automatic Nelly pick for me, Cody. And you mentioned earlier, like Ataya Titicum, I think is
Oh, I was going there too, buddy.
like hard to ignore. I honestly think Yuka Sasso is going to be right there. I think Lynn Grant is going to be right there. I hope Lynn Grant is right there. But I am going to come back to Nelly. I love.
Wait.
I know. I really tried to talk myself into all these different directions, but I'm coming back to Nelly. I'm coming back to. I'm riding with her. I'm riding with where she is mentally. We heard those clips earlier in the episode. I don't know. I want this, like, I'm just openly rooting for this already historic season, like you said, to turn into like one of the greatest of all time. And I think certainly another major, if not two, is going to be key to that. And so I hope it's this week. I'm picking Nelly.
All right. Well, way to get out there and change it up. Of course, I got my year-long Nelly prediction as it is. I'm very firmly and comfortable in the Nelly bucket. I mean, I know you're the one that's trying to make up
No, you're a
ground here,
bad guy.
get
You're a
back
bad
on
guy. You're a bad guy.
Nelly's side
No,
here, so that makes sense.
no.
Of course, Nelly, she is clearly the favorite at this event. And I would say, it's nice to see Lilia back, supposedly being healthy, winning last week. I just don't know how long. We also said that earlier this year about Angel, and Angel played awesome in match play and then was like,
I know.
it takes
It
time,
does. It does.
It takes time to build those reps back in and it's kind of like your first round of golf coming out of winter break. You're like, oh my goodness, like I haven't lost anything. I played so good, and then all of a sudden you got a bad month here. Not saying, of course, not wishing that for Lilia, but I think if you want to talk about current form, somebody who else struggled with an injury, kept her out for a long time in the beginning of the season. Of course, I'm talking about Ataya Titicul. First event back was Chevron. She ended up taking 12th there. In the 8 events that she's actually played, she's only missed the cut one time. Her highest finish so far this year has been that 12th the first week back
It's
at the
incredible.
Chevron. She's coming off of a T8 at Myers, a solo 4th at ShopRite, and tied for 6th at the US Women's Open. I don't know where else you can look right here outside of the train that is Nelly. A tie is it, and a win is coming. Why not this week? She drives the ball really, really good. She hits greens, and again, it's just that putter, and she seems to have found something with that putter.
She she's coming. Like, she's still just 21 years old. She won I believe she won the VAR trophy last year, but she
Yep.
led the LPGA in top 10s by a mile in 2023. And as you just said, once she's gotten back and with her feet underneath her this season, she's a top 10 machine. Like, it's really, really incredible the golf that she plays. And I think, like, she is going to force her way into the conversation with Nelly and Lilia and all these other women we speak of. I would love it if Ataya broke through this week. That's a fantastic pick. I went the safe route with Nelly, but she is a force to be reckoned with. So, Cody, I can't wait, man. This not only, prime time, like I said, some new visuals of Sahalee for me. Just a different looking golf course than what we typically see, even at major championships. I think this is going to be a really, really fun, exciting week, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you and the rest of the audience as we get going here.
Yeah, I agree, buddy. I'm pumped. Big trees get me fired up, and man, it's just such a different look. I'm really, really excited for it. And excited to watch a lot of commercials probably, but we'll have it. Come check us out. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon, happy hour show. Friday evening could be a late night potentially for us. Big. We might have to work on some timing here. I don't know if we can stay all the way to that 10 o'clock Eastern, but we'll see. And then of course we'll be back on Sunday for the big live show presented by High Noon. Thank you to Yeti. Thank you to our friends at Titleist. And of course, thank you to Mizuho Americas for our winning advice segment. Anything else before we get out of here, buddy?
Nope. Thanks everybody listening, and enjoy the week.
Cheers.